My name is Melanie K. Hutsell, and I am the author of The Art of Lost Souls and Other Stories. You know, back when I was writing several of the stories in this collection, all stories that I am proud to have written, I would be writing and revising some particularly stubborn section of one of the stories, and I would just be thinking to myself, I don't know if I can keep working on this. I'm sick of seeing it. I don't know if I ever want to see it again. Maybe I should just burn it and be done with it. And if you've ever felt similarly about your own work, feeling like you're stuck or bogged down, or if you've ever felt like life is getting in the way and that's frustrating you and you feel discouraged about not being able to make progress, then I have 3 tips for you to help keep that writing drive alive. These are all tips that I've used myself. I am an author without an MFA. I did take some writing classes in my undergraduate course of study back in the day, but I mostly have learned by reading books such as Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones, and Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, just to name a few. And I've definitely also attended my share, probably more than my share of writing workshops, and I've been mentored by other writers. And I am sure that these sources have influenced my ideas on this subject. And my first tip is simply to listen to your life. If we're writers, then everything that we are doing can be material and can bring us actually closer to our writing if we let it. Nothing is wasted in our lives, and riding the wave of what is happening in our lives instead of resisting it by wishing that maybe we had this perfect span of time in which to write, which we just simply don't have right now, that's not doing us any favors. So if we listen to ourselves very carefully, we'll discern if what we really need to do is to give ourselves a bit of a kick in the pants. Maybe we are procrastinating. Maybe we're not stretching ourselves, and we really just do need to sit down and write. But maybe sometimes we really just need to lighten up on ourselves a bit. Maybe the truth is that we're doing the best that we can with what's going on in our lives right now. And I think that knowing the difference can help us keep from turning our beloved writing project into some kind of boogeyman. But at the same time, it can also keep us from not stretching ourselves and not challenging ourselves when that's what we need to do instead. And my second tip is to stay as close to your writing as possible at all times. The emphasis in this tip is both on at all times, but also on as possible. Because the point here is to try to keep your heart and your head in the writing game as much as possible. You're trying to make a little progress, a little headway, as much as you can, so that you're balancing forward momentum with keeping that project fresh. And you're balancing the reality of your daily lived life with even small writing victories. We can make the most of what is available to us. For example, I used to think that writing in large chunks of time at night was, that was the way that I could write. And I would hear other people extolling the virtues of morning writing, that was the right way to do it. And I would think to myself, I just don't think I'm cut out for that. There must be something wrong with me then. I'm just not a virtuous writer if I'm having to write at night. But then over time, I started to realize that it doesn't really matter if we're writing perfectly, according to others' ideas of perfection, or maybe even our own ideas. What's really important is that we're writing. Not because writing is the right or virtuous thing to do, but because writing helps us keep our head and heart in the vicinity of what we're writing. So maybe you don't have the perfect span of time in which to write. You don't have an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours or whatever magical span of time people are supposed to have. But maybe you have 30 minutes. And if you don't have 30 minutes, maybe you have 15 minutes here and there. And 15 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but it can probably get you a sentence. And that sentence may not be the greatest, but maybe there's an idea in there that can help propel things forward. And if you write enough 15-minute sentences, one of those sentences, or maybe even many of them, will be usable as they are. And sentences have a way of begetting more sentences, and sentences turn into pages, and pages turn into chapters, and that's how you write. So even 15 minutes at a time can really make a difference. And moreover, that little 15-minute sentence is a writing victory. And that helps to keep you connected to your work. Your mind is still engaged with the project, and that can have benefits even at times in which you're not writing. So if you're able to, make a little progress here and there, then your mind stays with the project, and it's easier for ideas than to come to you when you're mowing the grass or doing the laundry. And maybe, but maybe you just don't have the stamina that night to do your 15 minutes of writing. So what you can do instead is maybe read over what you have written to that point. And there are some other ways that you can stay connected if you just don't have the stamina to write in that span of time. You might listen to music that ties into your project. I myself usually write to music, and the things that I work on tend to sort of accrete a bit of a playlist, and there always seems to be at least one song that becomes sort of the touchstone or theme song of that particular project. And as a way for me to stay close to the project, I take that song with me everywhere. I listen to it in the car. I listen to it at work. But if that's not for you, if that's not something that speaks to you, there are other things you could try. You could try wearing a piece of clothing that your character might, or drinking your coffee the way that your protagonist would, or you might order a meal that your character would love. And these are tricks that sometimes help if you're stuck on a project. It can help to kind of jar ideas loose if you can live a little closer to your character for a while. Maybe you don't know what your character's going to do next, so maybe you could watch your character's favorite movie or engage in your character's favorite pastime, play checkers or whatever. Anything that connects you thematically to the work, that moves you closer to its soul or essence. That is something that is going to help to nudge you a little bit and help you keep that writing drive alive. Another way to stay close to your writing at all times, as much as possible, for the competitively minded among us, is to set goals. Ones that are realistically attainable. Don't be unrealistic about them, but that can kind of help to spur you along. Maybe you have a submissions deadline that you would like to make. Or maybe you're just sort of benchmarking yourself and you say, okay, by the end of this week, I'm going to get this scene written. And by the end of the month, I'm going to get this short story done. Now, I get that this is a strategy that can put some people off writing. You're not trying to make writing something that you just dread. So it does help to keep that first tip in mind here. Listen to your life. And to be judicious about what you're using that may or may not work for you. But for some people, this can be motivating because you can see, the progress. You're like, okay, I made this deadline. I made this little deadline. I made this little deadline. And that can help keep you moving forward at a point in time when you're feeling kind of stuck. You have to sit down and you got to work on it, and so you're like, here I am. I got to do this. And lastly, my third tip for keeping the writing drive alive is to have and be a writing friend. Writing can be such a solitary pursuit. And so it helps to have a buddy as an accountability partner. Now you could actually swap writing, but you don't have to. You could keep each other apprised of progress, word counts or page counts, or milestones with scenes or chapters. And maybe occasionally you get together to celebrate some of those writing victories. Having somebody to encourage you along the way and to check in with you can help you to keep from getting stuck. Sometimes the going gets tough. Sometimes it helps if you don't have to go it alone. Now, these 3 tips that I have shared today, listening to your life, staying as close to your writing as possible at all times, and having and being a writing friend, these are things that are pretty simple. Nothing very earth-shattering, for sure. But during all my years of writing, I've learned that every writing project that I come to is different, each having its own unique excitements and challenges. And sometimes it could be that writing lessons that you learn in one context, you have to relearn in another. In other words, at least speaking for myself, I know that sometimes I can use a friendly reminder when I'm stuck or frustrated or trying to shoehorn writing into my own life. And so I hope that these little tips or reminders have been and will continue to be beneficial to you on your writing journey. Thanks for watching. I'm Melanie K. Hutsell. Happy writing.